to a showdown where books reveal their hidden edge over cinematic spectacular and mental mastery. I'm Dr. Emily Sherwood. If you like education policy and literacy, please like and subscribe. So Linda was totally shocked. She was sitting in a faculty meeting at her small university, and Cecilia, who was the head of teaching and learning, who was in charge of helping new teachers and existing teachers at the university to reach their students better, was saying that students do better with films and with presentations than with reading. And she was discouraging the faculty from having students read. Now, this really upset Linda, who was a literacy expert, because she really respected Cecilia. Cecilia had some great ideas. She was very knowledgeable on a lot of things. And she had been really helpful to her this first year that she was teaching at this university. But she totally disagreed with this. And what Cecilia's belief was, that visual is better and that you shouldn't have people read, is a very common idea. There's this idea out there, particularly in higher education, but also in K-12 education, that you have to provide access to text. So if students are struggling readers, they shouldn't read. You should have them watch movies instead, and they can do it easier, quickly, and they're more likely to do it because, honestly, there are cases, particularly in higher ed, where students won't read. But the evidence does not support this at all. The evidence supports the idea that reading is still superior in learning to movies. Movies can be fun entertainment, but reading is a much more active process. So when you're watching a movie, it's very hard to stay incredibly focused, especially in today's time where we have so many other things going on. It's hard to stay focused, and if something happens and you miss part of the movie, you generally just miss it. It's very hard to go back and rewatch it. You can do that, but it's hard to find the right screen, the right scene, and it's not done very often. And it also is much easier to focus on details while reading. It's very hard to get the details and the depth involved when we're talking about movies. And another thing is that reading also helps to increase reading ability. Now, why is that important? Well, in this country, we have a reading crisis, and it's pretty much global. I've talked about that with PISA scores. Just about everywhere in the world, we're starting to see declines in reading. And that's because of a variety of factors: socioeconomic factors, economic factors, and educational factors. And technological factors, and just the way people are living. And reading is still an important skill. There's this idea out there that you don't need to read anymore. Well, yeah, you do. So a few years ago, I was teaching in Northeast Tennessee, and the Chamber of Commerce was actually asking teachers for information about reading and trying to get teachers to encourage reading, especially at the high school level. Why did they care about this? Why did they care about reading? Chamber of Commerce is a group that encourages businesses to come to the area. Well, the reason why is because they were seeing businesses that could not stay in the area or that had to look outside the area for workers because they didn't have enough people who could read well. In those jobs. These were jobs that you wouldn't think would take a high level of education, but they were jobs that people got usually right out of high school. You had to have a high school diploma, but factory jobs and maintenance jobs and manufacturing, and even like things like clerical where you have to type and work in an office. All of those require a relatively high level of reading, and they were having problems because they couldn't find enough workers who had that high level of reading. And I also know in upstate South Carolina, where some of my family lives, there was a similar issue with pharmaceutical plant. They had like 2,000 jobs. It was a huge amount of jobs for the area. This is a very small town. And they could not find enough people to fill those jobs because working with medications and processing, it takes reading. You have to be able to read and follow directions, and you have to make sure that the packaging is correct, because if somebody gets the wrong medication or the medication's got a problem, that's a big deal. That could hurt somebody's life. So reading is still really important, and it's not enough to say, oh, well, the student can listen to directions, or the student can watch a video about this, because again, it does not provide the same depth as reading. And there are many things that are not on audio. Even today, there's just a lot of reading involved with everyday life. And reading is also the main way that we learn vocabulary. So especially if you're in a content area class like science and social studies, you will remember the vocabulary you need much better if you read rather than watch a movie or listen to something. So it's not true that reading doesn't matter anymore and that reading is outdated and that you shouldn't read or know how to read. Reading is still super, super important. We've gotten kind of lazy, especially here in the United States, with all the technology, and it's just easier for teachers sometimes to put on a movie or to have students listen to something than it is to actually teach reading skills, particularly in the upper grades, because unfortunately teachers don't have a lot of skills sometimes in teaching reading in the upper grades. That's a problem with our teacher education programs. And it's just easier, and you can get a student some time to pass when otherwise they wouldn't pass. But we really need to reinvest in reading in this country at all grade levels, and reading is still so important in academic achievement and life achievement. So that's all for today. Thank you so much. If you're interested in this content, if you found it interesting, please like and subscribe. Thank you, and have a wonderful day, and until next time, keep learning.